and so I'm going to honor the rules that govern how she functions. No, we don't tend to do that because of a few basic things that we tend to overlook. Okay. And so tonight, we want to jump in right away with some of the questions. You want to start with yours?
My, I don't know.
The ones that you have?
Well, I got some questions that's basically, it says here, my wife seemed to always be too tired when it comes to sex.
Ooh. Well, first and foremost, this is a sensitive topic because we're dealing with people and we're dealing with the fact that there's so many moving parts and things that's going on. So when we work with a couple personally, we try to diagnose where they are, what life experiences they've had, if there's been trauma in any way, shape, or form. There's so much information that has to be gathered before we can say, oh, you know, you need to be ready for him in this area because he has a need, right? And that's the basic principle. We all have innate needs that need to be met and can really only legally be met by your spouse and should only be legally met by your own spouse. And so in a perfect situation, right, your husband has a need for sex. It's a high priority to him. Right under respect and honor comes sex as one of his basic needs. And it's not a want or a desire. It's a need for him to operate at his optimal, at his best. Just like communication and security are needs for a wife to be functioning at her best. So first and foremost, in a perfect situation, you guys want to now come under the same page. You want to have common goals in this area. And this one, I think, falls under common goals, right?
Well, there's four. Well, we do agree that the purpose of our relationship, we talk about the purpose of a marriage, and in there, we're the two is working to become one. And in order for two to become one, then we must have intimacy. And intimacy is basically, you know, releasing your own, any kind of selfish needs that you may have, and just looking to meet your spouse's need through partnering with God to bring out the best in your spouse. And God has packed you, your husband or wife's partner with gifts and resources and abilities and talents and to be able to help that person become their best. So when you're looking to the two is looking to become one, intimacy becomes the ultimate goal is to have intimacy. And then it says that great intimacy eventually leads to wonderful sex. Now you could have sex, but when you have great intimacy, it is even much more enjoyable and much more wonderful. And in this, intimacy has 4 pillars. So we're going to be talking about the pillars of intimacy, and all the questions that we received, we found out that it's in there. It's within the 4 pillars, whether they're in violation or also the person don't know about these four pillars. So the first one Joel talked about was common goals.
Having common goals, right? If you don't understand, and if we're not on the same page with meeting each other's needs, we don't have a common goal to bless one another. If we don't even know that we should be serving one another, then it is impossible to have a common goal to meet each other's needs. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And so a lot of times when a man complains that, you know, his wife is always saying that she's tired and she don't want to have sex or whatever, you would find a hefty part of that time is that they're not really on the same page in terms of meeting one another's needs, or even understanding that there should be a high priority on meeting each other's and fulfilling each other's needs, being selfless. A lot of times also, and I gotta say this, a lot of times also, if you are a man and you are selfish and you have not poured into or invested into cultivating an environment where your wife is not on E, she's not empty because she's doing a lot of things on her own, running the house, doing most of the work with the kids, still having to, come home from work and cook. And, if you guys are not pitching in to the point where you both are on the same page in terms of meeting each other's needs and helping each other out, caring, I believe is the biggest thing, where I found from my own experience when I didn't show that I cared enough to make sure that I ease Sherilyn's burdens or ease her of some of the responsibilities, or notice when she's having a difficult day and make sure that I come in and have solutions to problems that may be overwhelming her. If I'm not clued in to making sure that she's good long before the night, long before I want something from her, just out of a heart of caring for her to make sure she's good, if I'm not in that mode, then when I want or need something, she may be in a place where she's on E and she can't fulfill that need at that point, right? Not giving her an excuse to always use that, but keep in mind, fellas, that when we care and when we're busy serving one another selflessly, right, then automatically things that are a need for you are easily more being paid attention to. I just believe that we have to have a common goal, and that's why I think this falls on the common goal towards intimacy. I do feel like we each have to have a common goal of serving one another selflessly. Because when I do that, I'm not doing it because I'm looking for something in return. I'm just doing it because I care for Sherilyn and I want to make sure that she's good. And if Sherilyn has the same mindset, you know what? She's doing what she knows a need for me because she knows that she's the only one that's available to help me meet my needs. And I must say this, when it comes to sex, every day you won't be, both of you won't be fired up about making love at the same intensity. But what happens is, even on a day when Sherilyn may have a tougher day or may not be, excited about, tearing the place up, guess what? She's still able to meet my need in this area because she understands, and we both understand now, right, that we have a common goal of making sure that we take care of one another. And sex, as dramatic as it may seem and as exciting as we make it look, it's also part of a need. And so we're mature enough to know that, hey, I'm not feeling 100% today. I may want to just go to bed. I may just want to recover from a tough time that I've been having. But I care about my husband to the point where, he has a need. I'm going to bless him. And same thing vice versa. But we're talking about that specific question of husband.
And as a wife, I had to understand that just like a car needs gas, the car doesn't say, okay, it's built to receive gas in order to run. And when it run out of gas, it could be having all the best technology and abilities, but it can't run. It can't function the way it needs to function. So it's the same thing for a man. A man don't want sex; they need sex. It's a built-in need for the man.
And here's the thing about us. It took me a while, and I think it takes everyone their own time to kind of bump their head against a wall long enough where things aren't working to where we're ready to humble ourselves and learn. For me and for Sherilyn, I realized that we had to get to a place where we begin to study one another, see what makes us, what energizes us, and what drains us. Think about what's going on. Think about the regularity of what we've been doing. Why is she so low on energy? Why is he so low on energy? Why isn't he thinking straight? Why is he, you know what I mean? What have we done lately for one another? And so when we begin to keep track of how we've been helping each other to stay energized, how have we been serving one another, yes, especially in this area of sex, when you pay attention to how your partner is when they're starved or when they're not getting their need met, then you can, and when you care enough to pay attention to it, then you'll realize that, you know what, there's value in me making sure that this specific need is met. You see what I'm saying? But once again, I gotta round up and be responsible and say to the husband that is asking this question about the fact that his wife is not, she's always saying she's tired when it comes to sex. I gotta round up back and come back and say to you, ask yourself this question. Have you been pouring into her also? Have you only been selfishly trying to take from her in this specific area without adding value to her? How have you been in terms of caring for her needs? How have you been in terms of making sure that she's not running on an empty tank? How have you been when it comes to making sure that your words and the way you speak to her is cultivating her, building her up, creating a secure environment, and not tearing her down and depleting her emotionally? Because for a woman, sex is not just an act, the act of intercourse. Sex it begins long before you guys even hit the bed at night. It's a process that is an end result from her feeling love, from her being secure in the fact that you're her hero, from her knowing that she's safe with you and she can drop her guards, and from her knowing that you care for her beyond this specific need being met. Mm-hmm. And so as a man, you want to make sure that your heart is in the right place where you're caring for your wife long before it comes to you getting your needs met. That you're caring for her, making sure that if she needs to talk and you need to listen, that you're actually listening. Even if you think that what she's saying is whacked out and it's totally wrong, that you fully listen, because whatever she's saying is real for her. You see what I'm saying? And getting to know her to the point where she knows that you care. You know what I mean? And so I find that that if we care for one another and we are convinced that the other person cares for us, then we're able to drop our guards, because a lot of times we withhold what we feel, what we know we should be giving, because we're in fear of being taken advantage of.
And this is the case. Ephesians 5 talks about 25, I believe. It talks about husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself for the church. And in this instance, men, men. It tells me that the man first has to put forth the effort to create that atmosphere, because we were sinners. We fall short of the grace of God, and we didn't deserve to be for God to give his life for us. But it wasn't about where we were, but God cared enough to send his only begotten son to die for us so that we can have the abundant life and not die in sin. And the same thing as a husband, he has to create an atmosphere. He first has to start doing the things that create that atmosphere so that he will bear fruit. And the other part of that scripture, it says that when he cultivates her, then he presents her to himself. He showers her with the word and then present her to himself. So basically, what you put in is what you get out. And when men, I believe one thing that they could understand about women always talk about women being incubators, and everything that is coming to them, they're going to amplify. They give birth, they create So when they have a lot of negative, it may not necessarily be you husbands, but the job, experience, things with her, with the children's school, health, and all these things that the woman, the different hats a woman wear, all these things could negatively impact her, so she's drained. And so I believe, is the husband place to protect her in that, knowing that a lot of these things that she may face, probably help out in different ways. Ask her how you need her to, how you need to help her, and offer to help. And it may not be easy. I'm not saying it's easy for you to be able to do it, but just doing it and sacrificially doing it, it shows her that you care.
Absolutely.
And that you're that you become her hero, because she knows the situation that's going through, and it's a part of creating the atmosphere.
I agree.